Hello, everyone. Welcome to Freelance Chat. Yay, we're back.
Hello.
We have such a special guest today. Steve Folland is here from Being Freelance. Yay, Steve.
Oh, listen to that
Woo.
crowd. That's incredible, Michelle. uh,
No, I'm
well,
really excited that you're here.
I like your new home. I like the fact that you've moved away from Twitter and found yourself here in Threads. Nice. I'm glad.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. We have to keep it going, because people really like the chat and it's a nice resource for people to ask questions and get some answers or get some truth about freelancing. So there are some resources where you can do that, but not as many as maybe there should be. So
Well, it's really nice to be here. Thank you for having me as well.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yay. And we're going to
glad
talk
you're.
all about transparency in freelancing today. But
Mmm.
first, we're going to let everybody kind of get here. It's lunchtime in the States, and what time is it over there?
It's
5?
dinner time. It's five
Okay.
o'clock.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you. I should be picking my wife up from the station. I had to tell her to get a cab. No, no, no. You've done me a
Oh, no.
favor. Don't tell her. But I
Ah,
hate. I hate. No. Do
it's
you know what?
cocktail.
It would be my luck that this would be the first time she would ever watch anything I did on the internet. She could be sitting on that train right now. I would have loved to have picked her up. Sadly, I can't. I'm here. It's all good.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're here, and I say it's cocktail time over there, so if you wanted to grab a cocktail or your lunch or whatever, a snack,
I've
there's
got my
Robin.
tea. Yeah.
Hey, Robin. Hello, Erin. Hello, Angela. Hello, Charles. Hello.
Yeah, you see,
Um,
Robin's in France, so it's like 6 o'clock there, 5 o'clock here. That's where we
is
are.
it okay? See, I don't even know that difference. I mean, that boggles my mind a little bit. I did just talk. Robin and I were just talking earlier today, but I didn't ask her what time it was, so I assumed it was the same as the
Mais
UK.
oui, she says oui. Yeah, you see.
But I want Steve while we're and I'll ask everyone to introduce themselves in the chat, but I want Steve to talk a little bit about himself and what he does and being
Oh, phew.
freelance and all that good stuff. And we can put a
I can
link in
do
there
that.
too if people want to check it out. So
I wonder what you're going to ask me to talk about, but me, I can talk about me all day long, no problem. So I'm Steve, and I'm a freelance podcast and video creator. But I also, nearly 10 years, started the Being Freelance podcast, which is still got. Michelle's been on it for that. In
oh,
fact, so has Robin, who's joining in the chat. So I basically chat to a different freelancer. Each episode has been over 300 conversations now that you can enjoy. And from that spawned a community. We used to be on Facebook, but we've now moved off of that. So it's sort of become a paid membership, but it's really lovely in there. And we do lots of live stuff in there, as well as all the sort of stuff that you expect in a group. And there's a course for new freelancers that came off the back of it as well. So lots of things came off the back of me just wanting someone to talk to when I was working at home when I was freelancing. Yeah.
that's so great. I mean, that's one of the things I don't know if people always are transparent about is the loneliness factor in freelancing. I mean, it could be a pretty lonely life, lonely day, lonely road, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be really isolating. I've spoken to no end of people for the podcast who maybe got a dog because they were lonely, and that's the only person they speak to all day. Although dogs are great, or they go to the supermarket and just to talk to a human being at the at the checkout. So yeah, it's great nowadays that we have so many ways to connect online compared to what they used to be, I think.
Well, and I feel like in the UK, there's such a tight knit group of freelance folks. I mean, I don't know if that's just my perception, but I'm always like, I'm kind of jealous because I'm like, oh, look how much fun they have. And, I feel like people are really supportive of each other. Not that they're not here, but, it feels like a real community over there. So,
It is. It's really nice, and but you know, it's a global community. Everybody's welcome, uh, and I've always said. In fact, I've maybe even said this to you before. You know, that whole thing of if you don't find the community near you, then maybe it's up to you to start one. But often they're there. You've just got to go looking for them. Perhaps they're just not marketing themselves well enough.
Right.
But there's what I love is that there's so many different communities for so many different people. You know, like so. Yeah, we welcome freelancers from around the world who doing whatever they do. Usually creative freelancers, but you know, you might find a community which is just for PR folk or just for female copywriters or whatever it might be. You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
really specific. So
Yeah.
I think if you, yeah, definitely don't be alone freelance. Go find your people.
Yeah, yeah. The backstory of the chat is that I tried to do a meetup group here locally, and it worked for a while, but it was always a little like people would show up that maybe really weren't freelancers, which is, like, okay. But when you do this for a living, like, and you deliberately make it your career, I think you
Mm,
think and feel and, work a little differently than maybe somebody who's just doing it between jobs, or maybe they are in real estate and they call themselves a freelancer. You know what I mean? Like, they work for themselves, but it's not the same as, like, I guess most of us are in marketing, so maybe that's the difference. I don't know, but
yeah. Although, yeah, but you know what? Even those people, you never know where those connections are going to lead. What if that real estate person needed some PR doing, Michelle? You know, or what if somebody they knew wanted a copywriter and so on? So yeah.
no, it's true. But that was a tough road. So that's how I got on, ended up with the Twitter chat for freelancers, and that actually was, wildly successful. So glad we can keep doing this. And yeah, so I asked people to introduce themselves, and I'm going to give them a minute to do that because that's just part of how we always work. There's yay. Okay, everybody's introducing themselves.
Yay! Oh, it's like Twitter, all o- but except for everyone's lovely. But you still do the text version of this on Threads as well, don't you? Not just on
I
YouTube,
am well, I will have a Threads chat next week that
right?
will be specifically just on Threads. I haven't figured out yet how to translate YouTube other, like, I don't know how that would work to do it I could do it at the same time, I guess, but it might be hard for me.
I like it. I like the idea of like alternating. I think it's a good idea. I think it's good.
Well, not everybody wants to be on YouTube, and not everybody's on Threads yet. I mean, I'm hoping, like, keep fingers crossed that people are gonna come over, but, you know, um, yeah, so yeah,
Well,
there's
hi
some
everyone.
people.
Hey Rob. Hey Ange. Robin.
Yay.
Lorena. Oh, I see. I'm Paula, or is that Paula? How do we say
It's
Paula?
Paula. Paula has been,
Paula.
a regular with on Freelance Chat for many, many pretty much since the beginning, I mean, pretty early on, so but her name on YouTube is different, so then I'm always like, "Okay." Who
Although
is that?
Lorena is not, you know, like you. Sometimes we have old internet handles hidden away, which we really shouldn't be using these days. So that's a nice one. You know, it's better than like Bunny Rabbit 67 or something like that. So I didn't mean to give out your old handle there, Michelle. Sorry, that was our thing.
Oh, dear. Alright. It's like Twitter, except everyone's lovely. I know, right? That's great. That's my favorite. I mean, honestly, I still have my Twitter account, but I just don't think, I mean, I don't know. I'm not using it in the same way for sure that I was, but sometimes I'll pop over there and see what's going on, and
Open the
avoid the
curtains. It's like visiting an old home. See, don't like what the new neighbours have done with the place. That's the trouble when you
no,
go there now. Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no.
That's
Yeah,
all
no.
right. The people are still out there. Now they're here. Look, that's all
Yeah,
nice.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. I am going to start typing this first question. So we'll get ready for
I
our
love. Don't
questions.
you love it? Michelle types it live. Everyone, I love it. You actually hear the clickety clack.
I
I was,
know.
because I listened to your one with Sophie Cross. I couldn't join that one live, and so I listened to it on a dog walk. And I loved the clickety clack, clickety clack. It's nice. Sorry, I'm putting you off. Putting you
No,
off your
no,
clickety
it's
clacking.
okay. Well, see, the thing is, I do these live because I don't know a thing about production, and I didn't want to have to be in the production business. So when it's live, it is what it is. It's
Yes.
authentic. It's out there. It's
That's what
here.
we
It
like.
is, and
Yeah.
take it or leave it, whatever. But yeah, I don't know that I'm gonna get to the very like polished. Plus, we couldn't do this if it was recorded. There's no, I mean, I don't think, obviously the people can go back and listen to it, watch it later,
Yes.
but
Yep.
like,
Yep. Yeah, it's not the same. No, I love doing live stuff. It's great. Look at that. Lorena de Parenthesis was a nickname I got after using way too many parentheses in one comment, and it stuck. That is a great way to get a nickname.
yes.
Parenthesis is fun to say as well. Parenthesis. All right. Now you're wondering what Michelle's typing, what the first question is. So am I. It's a long one. Either that or she's
Yes.
ordering some Deliveroo. What are you getting? I'll have a thick shake. Okay.
There we go.
All right.
So that is what we're talking about today. It is long, isn't it?
It's all right.
I'm just introducing because people may not be aware of the topic. So,
So we're going to be talking about transparency in freelancing, and what Michelle always does is ask 5 questions, which not just us are going to answer. We want you to answer them as well.
right.
That's the whole
And then
drill and the deal.
usually at the end, I say people can ask you questions, but honestly, you can ask questions anytime, right?
My wife get in going, "Where the hell are you? I've been waiting here 20 minutes." As long as it doesn't rain, I'll be all right.
Let's see. Okay. So
Ooh,
Q1. Should we as freelancers include pricing on our sites? And I have just talked about this week with somebody. I forget. There were a couple places it came up. It comes up all the time.
Should we as I can hear myself back. Let me just check. Why is that suddenly started? I'm going to change my settings just in case it's something to do with that. Should we as freelancers include pricing on our sites? Yeah, we'd love to know if you share pricing on your site and what your experience of it is. I don't. Do you share pricing on your site, Michelle? You do?
I did. I started. Okay. So I worked, I don't know. You probably know Jill Andrews. Is that right? The copywriter.
Mm-hmm.
I hired her to help me rewrite my site because I am not good at writing and talking about myself. And so I invested some money and had her help me. And she suggested I put pricing up there. And I had never done it before because I was always afraid to put people off. Blah, blah, blah. But actually, and maybe it does put people off, but honestly, they're the people that I don't want to really waste a lot of time,
Right.
going back and forth only to find out after 2 phone calls and a proposal and a this and a that I'm way out of their ballpark, because sometimes I think in PR consulting, you get people that are like solo business owners, and that's great. But some of them, they don't have a big budget for marketing, and that's totally understandable. It's just that, at this point in my career, I can't really, I might not be the best fit for somebody that, doesn't.
Yeah. So what do you do? Do you have like a prices starting from, or?
I kind of have a couple of packages up there, and it is kind of just an idea. I always tell people when I do have a phone call with them, if they've been to my site and looked at the pricing, most of them haven't, by the way. They just, I don't know. I'm almost like, what did you? I don't know. It's funny, but I'll say, well, don't. I usually do a custom quote for after we talk, so it might not really be a fit for them, but it just gives them an idea. And then I was thinking, like, I had recently somebody turned me down and they said it was due to pricing. They went with somebody else, I guess cheaper, right? And then I thought, should I lower my prices? And then I thought, I haven't changed my prices for at least a couple years, and I'm not really sure I should go backward on that. So anyway, I think if you're not getting any pushback, it's probably too low. And, of course, I do get business based on the pricing too. So it's just, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you do something which is, like you just used the word package. It's like if you have a thing and it's always going to be a similar price,
Mhm.
then it makes sense to put it on your website, doesn't it? Because as you say, it can turn away people who maybe would have got in touch who you didn't want to get in touch. It also maybe helps people feel secure about getting in touch because they're like, oh, okay, I know what I'm getting myself into.
Right.
Maybe it helps position you as a certain quality thing as well. But
Mhm.
then I get stuck because I edit podcasts, I edit videos, and both of those things are so variable. They're such a how long is a piece of string kind of thing. So it helps more to get into a conversation with somebody
Mhm.
first, so that you can find out what on earth they're going to be, throwing you in your direction to begin with. But what I've had a few experiences recently where I've got on a call, gone through it all, had a nice chat, thought, yay, this is great. Like they've been referred to me by a good lead. And then when I've sent off sort of an email, which is essentially a proposal, they've come back and gone, oh, I'm so sorry. That's way out of our, we can't do that. And
Mhm.
now, if they were near, maybe we could discuss
Mhm. Yep.
wiggle room in the scope and things like that.
Mhm.
But when they're so far out, then I'm like, oh man, I've just wasted that time. I wasted the time on the call. I wasted my thinking time putting together the proposal. When in fact, maybe if I'd have just brought it up originally or had it on my website, maybe I
Mhm.
could have cut that section out. And then I think it's awful being in my head, Michelle. And then I think, but what if that person comes back further down the line? What if that person refers me to somebody else because they like talking to me and hearing my ideas for their show? You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
sometimes just having the
Yep.
conversation is also
Mhm.
useful. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
tricky.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like it's the right thing for me at this stage, but I think early on I would have been nervous about doing it, and I see a lot of people saying they're not doing it, but, I again, I always thought, well, if it doesn't work out, I can just take it down, but I really don't think that many people even look at it, so I'm not sure that it's
Mm,
doing that much. But the thing I have heard, and I think this is true, and Jill made this argument when she was working with me, is that what's the first thing you wanna know when you look something up, you look services or products or something up online, you wanna know how much it's gonna cost. And
yeah,
so if that's not there, you may just go on to the next person, you know what I mean? So that was a good argument, I think, for doing it.
yeah. And I think if you're someone who really hates having the finance question, the budget question when you're talking to somebody,
Yeah,
which is totally natural,
yeah,
then it gets rid of that as well, doesn't it? It's the fact that when you're on the call with a person, they already know what to expect. But I think it
yeah.
does help if you already know what I know, if you've got regular pricing that you stick to. Should we see what everyone's saying?
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like I think a lot of people aren't doing it. Uh, okay.
Yeah, Erin
Oh,
says
so
my vote is no, since a lot of times the rate will depend on the specific project. That being said, I work primarily with larger organizations that have set rates. So, oh, I see. So then they come to you with a rate.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
they're dictating the rate. That's interesting because I haven't found that, and I do writing too. I mean, I have, I do both, but yeah, I think that's interesting because sometimes you ask them what their budget is, and they're, well, I don't know. Like, so and I'm
Yes.
like, okay, well, I don't know either. Like,
I think if you're someone who gets a lot of leads coming via your website as well, then it's
Mhm.
quite a useful place to have. I've had some guests recently who've had forms on their website, and in there, the first drop down menu might be, like what's your budget, and it will have
Okay.
a section of ranges, and they might even have an auto responder. So if they tick the lowest range that they don't really want to consider, it will say, hey, I can't really help you right now, but how about these resources, something like that.
Wow.
um, but or also if they see what the range is and it's way out, then maybe they won't even bother filling in the rest of the form. That's kind of like their take on it as well.
Yeah.
Who else has said? Angela says, I don't post pricing on my website, but have thought about including a range or starting out wording to help weed out the people who just don't align budget wise. Yeah, I like that. It's tricky though, isn't it? You know, like when we have a range and then you get in touch and you're disappointed it wasn't at the bottom of the range.
Right.
Oh, so yeah, if it's like 200 to 500 and you're like, oh, it's 500. Oh, I thought it might be 200.
Yeah, the thing that I have found is I still give custom quotes based on what they need, and everyone is different. Every single person I talk to is a little bit different, and so posting the pricing, just like posting my niches, like it doesn't necessarily preclude me from changing my rate or working with somebody outside my niche, or like, so I don't know. I don't know. I respect everybody's opinion on this, but yeah, you have to do what works for you, I guess.
IO, who is the Built Environment Marketing Channel, hey IO, said, I added starting from last year, and also I sometimes start calls stating my day rate. Start calls. Yeah, it kind of it sets the bar, doesn't it? I think that's the thing. Yeah. And especially when we're freelancers and I don't know, we only have so much time. So if you're in a position where you have a lot of leads coming in, and often they end up being ones who can't afford you, then maybe that's a good time to think about putting something like that on your website to help filter through.
I do find that it has cut down on those people that ultimately, I mean, I'm not going to say they waste my time. That sounds bad, and I don't mean it that way, but it does. I mean, it's just, because unfortunately there are people, again, who think they understand what you do as a PR person, and I'm like, well, so they just think it's like they undervalue what it is and what it does, and so or maybe there are people that have less experience that probably do charge less, for sure. So
I guess though you're also saving their time, not just your time. That's another way of looking at it, isn't it?
Right.
But it is interesting, like you just said, they don't necessarily know the value of what you do. That's the thing about getting on that call, isn't it? That opportunity to kind of like find out what they need and then express that to them. Sometimes there's a value in that too. Yeah. It's a tricky one. Oh, yeah. Good luck if you're about to start putting your prices on your website, though. I always like that conversation.
Oh dear. I think I saw, is it Ed Gandia? He was talking about this too. He said, don't put the pricing or talk about the pricing and then say, well, but I'm okay, then backtrack from it. That was another thing I saw him say. So you kind of, when you do it, you kind of have to be confident and about like, okay, this is, it. And we can talk about, we've had this conversation on the chat too, about I think you mentioned revamping what they need, or figuring out how to maybe start and do certain pieces and parts and add or change as you go, that kind of thing too.
Yeah. So I had a client recently who came to me wanting this series of their first podcast edited, and they were so lovely, and it was for the LGBTQ plus space, and what they were doing was brilliant. And then I quoted them and they were like, oh, like you could see them, and then I was like, oh, I really want to help them because I really like what they're trying to do with this particular podcast. And I was like, okay, listen, we can't edit it this way, but I will spend this amount of time on it. Like I will get you a really great sounding podcast. It just won't be done in perhaps this same way, and I won't do all of these extra bits and pieces. And it actually worked out really well in the end. So, and if I'd have had the price on the website, I would have never spoken to them, never met them. So I'm always kind of conscious of that.
Okay. Well, that's a good point. The second question. You too. Should we be transparent about what we earn? I have definite feelings about this, but let's start with what you think.
Oh, should freelancers be transparent? So yeah, this is kind of like sharing what we earn with other freelancers, isn't it? And things like that. I guess I see people doing this, and the thing is, it can be inspiring. I think it can help people maybe realize that perhaps they're undercharging, for example. Also conscious of the fact that perhaps it can have feelings where you end up feeling deflated and like you're failing because you see what somebody else is doing. But there's a YouTuber called Charlie. Her surname is Charlie. Anyway, they do a podcast called Design Life, and they're also on YouTube, and her surname has escaped me. But anyway, for years I have watched her share her. She's inspiring young designers, but she shares her income breakdown every single year without fail. And she shares how much she earns. She's not a freelancer, actually. She does some freelance work, but she shares what she earns in her actual salary. And she shares what she earns as a content creator, what she gets from her digital products, and the whole breakdown. And I see it, and I think it's quite brave. Like, I'm not sure I would do that, but I can see how it must inspire people to think, wow, she has worked her way up from this level in that design job to be the head of this marketing team and is now earning that. And maybe I can aspire to earn that too. So I don't know. I can see both sides of it. I'm interested in what you think, Michelle.
Well, this whole thing with the 6-figure freelancer has just driven me nuts, because who cares? First of all, I mean, I'm sure it might be like my demographic, but like we were taught never to talk about money. Like, I don't know, like, and it's not only that. To me, I think it discourages people instead of helping inspire them. I think it can put a damper on, like, I want to freelance. I see all these people talking about how much money they're making. I'm only making X. Oh, I'm a failure. Like, oh, and that's not, to me, the freelancing is not just about the money. I mean, that's probably not even, that was never my motivation, even to work for myself. I wanted the freedom. I wanted the flexibility to choose my clients, and I wanted to have time to spend with my family or pursue my own interests or whatever it is. So that was really, and still is, to me, the best thing about working for myself. The money can be great, but it certainly is like, I mean, it can go like that. I mean, so I just don't think it's realistic. And then you see them post that stuff and you're like, well, is that accounting for your expenses? Is that net? Is that gross? Is that like, what is that? So I just, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, actually. That whole, you have to, if you're going to be that kind of person and be that transparent, then you need to go that extra mark and also be transparent about your expenses, about whether you hire other people to help you, whether you're selling a course, as in it's not just freelance work, there's other things, which is totally fine. That's great. But where's the money coming from? How much of it is actually profit? Ultimately, how much of that is also going out on other people? How many hours did you work?
Right. Yep.
What are your, I mean, I suppose you could say, what is your home situation, and things like that. Like we had Mary Cameron, the wrinkly writer, on the Being Freelance podcast just this week, just last week, and she's talking about. She wasn't talking about literally how much she charges, but when we were talking about her rates, she pointed out the fact that actually, because she's like in her late 60s, she's earned all her life, she's got a good pension, she feels comfortable, she owns a house, all of those kind of factors filter into how much you need to earn and how much you're paying out and so on. And so that affects how much you need to charge, how much you need to earn. So yeah, I think it can be inspiring, but a lot of them don't go that extra level of transparency so that you can actually see through and see their working, and therefore think about how it equates to you. And I think it's dangerous to see these things and just go, oh yeah, okay. Like, you have to, I think, analyze your feelings towards it and see whether that is actually even what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's true. The people that just brag endlessly about it. I mean, I was kind of stunned when I first saw that trend, to be honest. I was like, why would anyone? ever talk about that. Like, isn't that your personal business? Like, what? Like, and then I had people asking me, like, there was like, they were asking a small group of consultants for like what they made. And I was like, I'm not gonna, like, no, like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, this year could be way different than next year or last year. Like, I mean, and it's just, it's not even, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't see why it helps. I don't understand why it's helpful.
I certainly don't think we should feel we have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones who do it, yeah, I just urge the rest of us to then sort of analyze how much you're actually seeing of that figure. And, you know, if they're a 6-figure freelancer type
Mm-hmm.
person, and I feel bad. There are some people earning 6 figures who aren't the 6-figure freelancer people.
Mm-hmm.
But we all know who we're talking about when we say 6-figure. And often that brag, if you like, is because they then want you to buy into whatever they're trying to sell you to then achieve that. But then how much of that figure is the fact that people like you are buying into the course or
Yes.
whatever?
Yep.
Which then comes with that whole, how many people are helping them with their business? But actually, if they're transparent about all of those things,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and this is a conversation about transparency, then fair play. I think that kind of helps us all see, okay, well, maybe I could do bits of this as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I know me and another person here today attending have both been the victim of like kind of being like used by another freelancer to try to get information that they would then sell in their course or whatever, like, and not being transparent about it and giving out. I've had one that gave out my email to somebody, like somebody she was doing affiliate stuff for without my permission. So just there's stuff like that that goes along with it that I think is just, it's a whole, like, you know, I mean, not everybody that talks about their income is like that, but I think that just left a bad taste in my mouth. And,
Yeah.
you know, like Jenny is saying, she's less likely to buy from somebody that brags about how much they make.
Yeah.
So I
So,
agree.
yeah, Jenny says, I would rather share rates than income. Much more helpful, making sure no one's undervaluing the work without making people feel like they're awful at what they do, which is an interesting point, isn't it? Because that's it. If we're talking about helping others raise themselves up, then
Right.
actually, if that's what we want to do, then we can share the rate and we can share, I know, the fact that we're hiring a VA or somebody to work with us or a marketing person or whatever. Without saying exactly how much we end up earning, because that's you know, that's based on so many other figures as well. Sorry, yeah, factors is what I meant to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we're halfway through. We have 3 more questions. Okay, so this is a good one. I'm actually, let's see here. I'm gonna type the question so you will hear me.
Yeah, I'm reading the comments, by the way. I'm loving the comments. Erin says, I wish more Americans used the word lovely in everyday speech.
Right?
Do you guys not say lovely enough? Oh, it's a pity.
We don't. What's the other one?
I'm glad you like the t-shirt as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Which you can get at beingfreelance.com/shop. I'll be completely transparent. I don't really make much money on the t-shirts, but they're all sustainable, and it makes me smile when I see people wearing them.
I've wondered about the t-shirt business before. Like, I don't know. It sounds like it might be full of.
Well, I mean, in truth, you could, of course, set the price at whatever you wanted. I mean, this is like, if I could sell a $10 t-shirt for $100, and then I've made a tidy profit. Right? That's fat. That's where I'm going wrong. Yeah, don't follow my my t-shirt business.
All right. Here comes the third question. We're going to put it on the screen. How transparent should freelancers be about telling clients the world about more personal matters and sharing our lives online?
How transparent should freelancers be about telling clients the world about more personal matters and sharing our lives online? Good question, Michelle. No, what?
Questions.
God, no wonder. I'm so impressed that you managed to type all this out and keep talking and read the comments. It's very impressive. How transparent should freelancers be about telling clients / the world about more personal matters and sharing our lives online? Okay, well, I think you should never feel that you have to share anything with the world in general, especially like the online world and so on.
Mhm.
But I have seen as well the benefits of being transparent. So I know, like at a really simple level, like there are some people who have children who often ask me, like, should I talk? Should I be upfront about the fact that I'm at home working with my kids, sort of thing? And I get why sometimes you might want to keep that. You want to come across as professional, so you don't want to admit that maybe you're distracted and doing other things. But actually, that's just life, and often you then start to relate more to other people, like, because the people you're dealing with are just humans too. So I think things that you share can sometimes end up making a closer connection with people and making you more relatable. And I know some freelancers, they might share openly about, I don't know, their neurodivergent life,
Mhm.
or their sexuality,
Mhm.
chronic illness that they're living with. Who else have I spoken? I'm just trying to think of all the people having an autistic child, for example. All of these things, which you might think, well, I don't want to share that because I just want to come across as a professional freelancer and this is just my job. And like I
Right.
say, I really don't think you have to share anything.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
also see time and time again how good those people feel when they're just being their true self,
Mhm.
and the connection that they make with different people, and how sometimes they might end up doing work related to these things,
Right.
which gives them an even greater energy and pleasure in their work. So I think, whether it's caring for kids, caring for an elderly relative, or whatever it might be, or the fact that you only choose to work 3 days a week instead of 5 because you're doing whatever,
Mhm.
I think sharing those things can help. Just don't feel like you have to help. What do you think?
Well, I mean, okay, so backstory. On Twitter, years ago, I've been on, I mean, I think I got on there, I don't know, it's been, I don't know, 14 years, or I forget the year. But anyway, I found that I started to build more of a network over there when I let down my walls and became a little bit more personal and started sharing more about my personal life. Because I think, again, I was taught that we don't talk about our personal lives at work, right? I remember when I started consulting, in fact, one time I mentioned that my son, who was a toddler at that time, was at home. And they said, "You don't have him in daycare?" Like, I had a sitter come in sometimes, but a lot of times I just worked around his schedule and it was no big deal because that's, as a consultant, as a freelancer, I can do that. But when I said that and they found out that he was in our house at, like, during my workday, even though I had an office with the door, they didn't hire me for the gig because they thought, like, that's going to be disruptive if she's on phone calls interviewing, our customers or whatever, and the baby's in the background. And I was like, so after that, I think it had a chilling effect. And then I was like,
Mm,
I better be careful what I share. So for a while, it took me a while to get over that, I think.
yeah. I wonder whether the world has changed a bit as well. And I think the
Yeah.
pandemic helped with this, when people realized that you could work from home and you could work with distractions around you and all of those.
Yeah.
I would like to think maybe that would happen a lot less these days.
Yeah, and I think it was just, I don't think that would happen now, but it stuck with me, obviously, because 'cause I'm still thinking about it and talking about it all these years later. The other example, there's somebody, on LinkedIn, who was talking about, like, how they lost weight and how it improved their personal life, personal life.
Oh, personal life.
Yeah, and I thought that was a little bit too much for me. I'm like, "Okay." This is LinkedIn. Again, I know
Yeah.
anything goes over there now, but like this was like just a bridge too far for me. I was like, I don't really want to know that about you. Talk about awkward. Like, yeah, I can never think about you the same now. Like, okay, like somebody that should know better than that. Like, okay. But again, some people would think that's being judgy and whatever. But I get
Yeah.
at least
Ch-
you
Ch-
find
Charles
one.
Charles says, I love sharing what's happening in my life on social media to a degree. I feel it helps people get to know me and some of my clients I have such a great relationship with. I don't share everything though. That's the thing, isn't it? You know, we're in a position as solo business owners that big companies can't do, and that is that we can relate to people one on one based on our own experiences. And the more we share, and I don't share everything either, the more people get to know us. And I think, I went freelance so that I could be there for my kids. I didn't used to work Wednesdays at all because I would always have our daughter home on a Wednesday. I've always worked flexibly around them, and actually, I think I've kind of shared that online. Yeah, I've definitely shared it online. It's been in my vlogs. It's been on my social media. Um, and actually I've had clients who like that and talk about it because, like I say, they're human. Angela says, I think a sprinkle of personal topics is fine, especially if they relate to the work you do. For example, I write about pets and health and share my pets and health. It helps me get work. Yes, and who doesn't like a pet? Well, if they don't like, you don't want to work with them.
Well, right. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, if you don't like pets, don't share that. Keep it to yourself because people will think you're some kind of psycho.
and we have a perfect example of that going on over here right now. So we're not going to talk about it because everyone else is. But my goodness, like, whoa, keep that to yourself, I guess. I don't know. Yuck.
So Paola says, seems there is or should be a fine line between being transparent and human and oversharing. Too much information is always awkward. Yes, that's true, isn't it? As you said. TMI. That can go too far. I think as to how much you share is totally up to you. And I've seen, like, as a female copywriter on LinkedIn sharing about when she got breast cancer and talking through that on LinkedIn and encouraging others. And clearly she didn't have to do that. She could have just gone through that privately to herself. But what about the people it inspired? Not that you have to feel you have to inspire, but inspired or made other people feel, it's like when people talk about their mental health issues as well, that can really help other people, sometimes without you even knowing that that's happening. It can help build those connections that we rely on as our businesses as a side knock-on effect of all of those sort of things as well. So yeah, well, like Charles says, I'm pretty open about this is Charles saying, I'm pretty open about my mental health troubles online, although less so recently. And I ended up working with a peer-to-peer support group because of it. Yeah. So that's awesome. Yay for you, Charles.
Yeah. And I think you just get a feel. And sometimes I also, with clients, like if it's early on and I'm still getting a read, I might, like, I guess we're talking about sharing online, right? But I'm also thinking about, like, when you talk to a client and, you're having, you have your regular calls and you're just catching up a little bit or whatever, I might kind of hold back a little bit on my personal stuff until, like, we get to know each other a little bit, or I get a feel. Like, some clients are very serious and businessy and other clients like to have a laugh. You just get a read on that, I think, as time goes on. So that's another thing. Sometimes I have to get comfortable before I'm able to feel okay about sharing more personal stuff.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a good point with the illness, because, like, if you were ill and you had to do client work, should you tell your clients? I mean, at some point you might have to, so.
Yeah. I totally get why people don't. And yet I also see people, for example, who have some kind of chronic fatigue type illness where their energy really is limited, but they talk about it and they say how they work their workload around it, So no, I'm not going to take on that last minute project from you and say, promise I can get it to you tomorrow. because that's not the way I work my business. So, and I think that probably draws other. In fact, that one particular person who I spoke to for the podcast about that recently, Frankie Shanahan, she was talking about how the fact that she's also ended up working in that field as a copywriter because she's been talking about it online, and I guess finds other people going through similar things online, and therefore doesn't feel doesn't feel so alone going through that kind of thing. Yeah, but I totally get why also you might think, I don't want to share this online because people might not think I'm up to doing the job. I guess you wouldn't maybe put it for full blast on your website,
Right.
talk about all the good stuff, but equally, you know, if you know, I can think of freelancers with varying degrees of disability,
Right.
physical disabilities, and it is on their website, and I think that's awesome. This is who you're going to be working with, and it doesn't stop them doing the job.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to somebody once who said, you know, if you share something like, say, about your political views online, and somebody's put off by that, it's probably somebody you don't want to work with anyway. So I'm like, okay, well, that changes my whole outlook on that, because like it's kind of true. I mean, I don't know. I think you have to be careful about like on LinkedIn, I would never talk about politics, but on Twitter, occasionally I would, and of course on Threads, I do, and yeah. So anyway, I don't know. I'm going to put the next question up on that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. Should freelancers share transparently when things go wrong with the client, project, etc., their business, whatever you want to, however you want to interpret that?
Well, I would love to see what everybody thinks about this, but I mean, yeah. I think if something has gone wrong on a project and you're able to sort that issue out, there's no need to panic the client. You can just sort that issue out, But if it's something that is going to delay the project, or there is going to be an issue delivering it, then the sooner you tell your client about issues, then the better. It just makes you more professional, I think. What do you think?
So you're thinking about this in the light of telling the client when something's going wrong.
Yeah.
Is that right? I'm thinking about when people talk online about, okay, so I had this client and this thing happened with this project. You know how people like, well, I don't want to say they trash their client, or they discuss how something went wrong. I'm thinking about that too. Like, sometimes it can come off a certain way, and so I don't know. But with the client, if something's going off the rails, I usually do try to tell them as soon as possible, because even though it might be a hard conversation to have, I think it does help in the long run, because sometimes it can be corrected, or we can course correct or whatever. If I don't say anything and they don't know, and then it just ends up to be a big dumpster fire later, that's not good.
Yeah. Paula says, I would discuss the issue and how I dealt with it, because we can learn from each other's experiences, but I would never name the client. Oh, I see. If sharing it online. Yeah. Also, I guess learning from each other's experiences, you don't have to necessarily share it in the moment. You can share it further down the line, can't you?
Yeah.
And then perhaps it also, the client might not see it, but also it's not relatable. It's not instantly linkable, I guess, to what else you're sharing and what else you're putting out there. Yeah. Erin, I'd appreciate if a fellow freelancer told me a certain client wasn't good to work with, so I could proceed with caution. But a public lambasting, I think that's a bad look. Yeah, I don't like it when, I don't know, I see freelancers talking badly about clients, or that kind of work, for sure. But it's tricky, isn't it? Because recently in the freelance community, we had a situation where somebody was having a nightmare client, and the being freelance community is a closed community. So what you say in there isn't visible like it is on here, for example.
Right.
But it turned out for somebody else had also worked with that client, and they were like, "Oh man, like if only I'd spoken about that client, then you wouldn't have got into." So yeah, sometimes I guess, I don't know. I can't.
Yeah.
It would have to be a really bad situation for you to share that. But even then, I would share in a private community, not in a. You have to remember what you share in private communities doesn't necessarily stay in private communities as
Well,
well.
that's the
Keep that in
thing.
mind.
Yeah, I think that would be a little scary. You'd have to really be, trusting to put it out there, and, um, maybe it's better to share with a friend, having
Yeah.
a conversation with a friend or another freelancer that you know, but, there's an ant on my desk. I'm sorry. I'm like, "Oh, no. Where's that coming from?"
Well, I'm glad you shared it. See, transparency.
I saw something
Michelle
crawling, and so for momentarily, I was like, "What is that?" Like, "Uh-oh."
Michelle has
But
a
it's nothing.
filthy house, and we all feel a lot better about our own now. And that's the kind of transparency we're here for.
No, you know what? It's 85 degrees and it's May 2nd. That's the problem with the bugs in the house already, but
Is
that's
85 hot? Is that we
it
don't
is
do?
hot.
Is that? Oh,
Yes,
okay, right.
For May 2nd, it's like August temperature, really.
Oh,
I mean,
nice.
this is too hot. Like, I know everybody wants spring and it's beautiful. It smells like flowers when you walk outside, blah, blah, blah. But this is a little too warm for me personally. But anyway, and then the bugs come in. So anyway, I'm off on a tangent. But yes, there's the bug.
Oh my
All
god.
of those things. Yeah,
Yeah, Robin says people forget that screenshots can be shared anywhere at any time. Yeah, there we
yeah,
go. Yeah,
yeah, you gotta be careful. I mean, I think it's okay to talk generically, and I also talk about, like, trends. With PR clients, there's certain trends. I wouldn't talk specifically about a client, but I'd be like, there's this trend where they think the reporter should send questions before the interview. That's not really how it works, so you shouldn't expect that. Like, I wouldn't call out a client who said, "This company, this person thought," like, I would never do that. But
yeah,
sometimes I do a post, or I talk about, like, "Oh, here's a misconception," or, like, common misconception or whatever. So let me
yeah.
put that question up.
Charles says, a bit like politics, some people spend too much time talking about what other people do wrong and not enough time on what they would do. Yeah. Yes, yes. Um, oh, Michelle's typing. Here comes another question, everyone.
All right. And this is the last question. We have taken up almost the whole hour. So, but we will, if anybody has questions for Steve, of course, he's very reachable and available and happy to answer questions. I'm going to put the Being Freelance website up here too. So the last question, should freelancers be more transparent about the realities of freelancing? And when this question, I interpret it to mean, okay, things like loneliness, things like, your income can go up and down. You can't have bad months. You can't have days when you just don't feel like working. And then what do you do? Like, that's what I'm thinking about when I talk about that. Cause I feel like a lot of times freelancing is put up on this pedestal, like you're on a beach and you're working from a remote location with the drink in your hand. And like, I'm like, it's really not like that for most of us. I don't think, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I have an and on my desk, so.
Did. RIP Ant. Should freelancers be more transparent about the realities for freelancing? Yeah, yes. I mean, I don't think I'm one for seeing the positive in things rather than the negatives. But equally, if you're not talking about the tougher moments or the fact that not everything is glorious and fun, because ultimately, you're working. I mean, we try and enjoy our work as much as possible, but not all of that is fun. Or those quiet moments when you're starting to wonder whether anything's ever going to come in again, and then it does. The fact that we share those, I think, are good. And also, I see some people, when they share the fact that maybe they're having a really tough spell, particularly this past year, it seems. If they
Yeah.
share that, then sometimes, other than the rallying, supportive, feeling that they might get from other freelancers, sometimes other people bear them in mind for work. So if you're talking about the fact that you've got a really quiet spell, then
Mhm.
more work can come your way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's always hard. It's like a pride thing. It's like, should I put out the, you know, the raise the flag that I need some work right now? I always assume that everybody would talk to somebody if I referred them a potential client. Like, and that's my policies. I'm always going to talk to somebody that I think is potentially a good fit, regardless of whether I'm busy or not. And that's just a mindset I think I've learned over time. It's like you never want to get too like you don't want to rest on your laurels. Like, yes, I have a lot of work right now, but I still need to keep talking to people, keep marketing, keep the things going, all the time. Um, but yeah, I think sometimes we don't want to be vulnerable and talk about, the things that can go wrong as a freelancer. And I do think sometimes it gets this, it paints this pretty picture, it's just gonna be like a Shangri-La after you go out and work for yourself. And it's like, it's not always like that. So there's a lot of things that can
Yeah.
go up and down.
I think as well, there's the element of where you share. So, like within a private community, like being freelance, we feel, I don't know, it's easier, maybe is not the right word, but it's easier to be vulnerable. It's easier to talk about the good and the bad because you feel like you're in a safe space rather than perhaps just posting it on, I don't know, LinkedIn or Twitter or Threads or whatever it might be.
Right.
Charles says it's good to remember that people choose what they share. Just because someone seems to be having the best time doesn't mean it's the full truth. I try to
Right.
be open about
Yep.
both good and bad. Yes, Charles.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is why it's good to be transparent. Like it's that thing, isn't it? Like I said, like it's no fun if you're just talking about the negatives. That's the trouble, isn't it? And
Right.
it helps, especially on the likes of LinkedIn, if you're talking about the work you are doing,
Mhm.
because that's more likely to inspire people to look at what you're doing, I think.
Mhm.
So yeah, but you have to bear in mind when you look at what other people are sharing that they're not necessarily sharing the bad.
Mhm. I've made a conscious effort to share some of the negative things that have happened, like I didn't land that client I wanted, or I do that on purpose because I don't want people to think, oh, she's only talking about the good stuff and like this and that and the wins. It's like you have to celebrate your wins, and I think that's great. But then you also, I think, if you are interested in helping others or being, like just being supportive of other freelancers, you have to be honest about things that don't always go your way. And believe me, like I've been doing this for over 20 years, and there's a lot about it that can kind of get you down at times. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's not all
Yeah. I
perfect.
I used to do a weekly vlog, so filming myself and my freelance life. Which every now and again I'd come back to, but for a long time it was like every week I'd be doing it. And that is definitely transparent about what, the roller coaster of every week. Hopefully it usually resolved itself by the story arc was
Mhm.
generally positive by the end of the week. But by sharing those kind of things, I've had no end of comments where it helps people, like they're not the only one going through that. That's the thing, like, and you see that often with comments in the being freelance community. Somebody will share something and then it feels great to know it feels lovely to know you're not the only person going through that thing, no matter how big or small it is.
Mhm.
So that's the other thing, if you just keep it to yourself, you never know that you're not the only one. You just think that you screwed up or you experienced something in some way.
Yeah. No, I think it's really helpful, and having the chat community, I think, has helped a lot of us too to have that connection
Yeah.
and know that we're not alone. And that, I mean, for people starting out too, it can be really confusing if all you see is all these wonderful, like, oh, this is the best thing, little, and then you start getting into it, you're like, wow, this really stinks. Like, this is, I sent out 5 proposals and I didn't land any of them, or I don't know, just I'm not, my client is paying me. It's been, 2 months and they haven't paid this invoice, and, I'm the only one that's ever happened to, and, just things like that. So,
Yeah.
I think it's good to
The baby freelancers, as Paola put it. Yeah.
baby. That's funny. Well, we're right at 1. if anybody, I'm sure if anybody has a question for Steve, you can ask away. We'll probably start wrapping this up. I did put the Being Freelance website up there. So it's a membership, but there are other resources there too, right? Is that right?
Yeah, come find me on Instagram at Being Freelance. Yeah, Being Freelance. There's a podcast. There's plenty of, it all used to be free, but now because we moved off Facebook, it's a paid membership. But you can try it for months, see if it's for you. There's lots of lovely, brilliant people in there, and yeah, it's a really nice place to be. And yeah, thank you so much for having me, and for everybody for sharing your thoughts today as well. I like it works well, doesn't it? The whole YouTube thing. I like.
Do you like it? Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's different. I mean, it's I don't know. It's nice. I'm so glad that to still have that sense of community, because that's really important for me as a solo business person, a freelancer, or consultant, whatever you want to call yourself. I think it's really important to have those people, and the people that show up are usually, the ones that, really are committed and care and want to help other people and support other people, other freelancers. So those are the people that you need around you when you're doing this. So yeah.
Oh, nice. Oh, loving all the comments. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad that Commander Puggle finally posted a comment, because that is a great name. I don't even want to know the story behind that. I'm just quite happy that there is somebody taking charge of the Puggles. That's the important thing. Thank you, Commander Puggle. Excellent.
Yes, and we'll be on Threads next week, same time. Use the hashtag to find us, and I'm typing. Yes, once again. Yay. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Right, I better go and get my wife. Yeah, she messaged to say she's walking home, and I said, well, blame it on Michelle.
Oh dear. Well, have a great evening. Thanks, everybody.
Take care. See ya.
Bye.